Right now we're facing east, and it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. The sun is rising. Here we are 12 hours later, and it looks a lot different now. I'm not so silhouetted because the sun's not behind me. Now it's in front of me. Check it out. See? Humans are pattern seekers and storytellers. The pattern recognition is how humans have learned to survive in an unforgiving world. We're made to notice these things. These things are a survival skill. Things like continuity. For instance, did you notice the different shirts I was wearing? Good, that means you're paying attention. As creatures of patterns, humans would look up at the sky and notice that most of the surroundings repeated in cycles. For instance, the sun will always rise in one direction, bringing in the light, moving across the sky, and set in the opposite direction, bringing in the darkness, stars, and the moon. These cycles of light and darkness seem to last the same amount of time, which we now call a day. That measurement, in turn, was able to count the cycles of the moon, which roughly gave us our months. These cycles fascinated us, so night after night, we would look up and follow the stars. And it wasn't long before we realized that there were certain breaks in these patterns, which was just as fascinating. Sometimes, the sun or moon would disappear momentarily before reappearing. Ancient Greeks called these events eclipses. Rare comets and meteors boggled the human mind. So did the wandering stars in the sky. A wandering star moves a little differently than the rest of the stars. At times, these bright stars would break the east to west patterns and drift the other way for a while, before returning to its normal path. There were 5 of these wanderers, as the ancient Greeks called them. The Greek word for wanderers is planetes, or planet. So for thousands of years, we saw these things happening. Over time, we also learned old tales from our elders and realized that they and many of the events happening in this realm were beyond our control. So who controls it? As stubborn as humans are, that probably drove their curiosity even more. The question of why the stars and planets were the way they were, or why floods and droughts occurred, drove us to continue to speculate. As we advanced, we learned to use tools, cook, migrate, farm, and write. In order to help navigate us at night, we learned to use the patterns on the sky to our advantage. For instance, stars, including our sun, can tell you what time of day and year it is, which allows us to anticipate the upcoming seasons and weather patterns, as well as point us in the right direction. We then began to put our thoughts into writing in an attempt to share our knowledge. Sky charts were created, explaining the movement of the sun, moon, stars, and planets. Over time, they came to believe that the universe rotated around the Earth. Why? Because from the perspective of the Earth, it really doesn't seem like we're moving. And if you watch the sky long enough, Well, it basically looks like everything moves in circles around us. The explanation fit the pattern that we observed. They found ways to adapt the occasional wanderings of the planets, and for a long time, people believed in an Earth-centered system. This is the Galileo telescope. What's a Galileo telescope? Well, it's basically Galileo's telescope. You see, nowadays, telescope costs like $3,000–$4,000 and stuff like that, at least the good ones. And these ones were simply made out of lenses and tubes. Why they're so expensive nowadays? Yeah, so that place that we were at, now it's night and the moon is out. Woo. As time passed, we got smarter and we learned that if you position glass lenses the right way, it makes things look bigger. So, from simple tools, a man named Galileo built his own telescope and pointed it at the moon, realizing that its surface was rather rough. Then he pointed it at Jupiter and discovered something that anybody, even children, can also see. I've been taking observations of Jupiter, and I've been taking them in this log and kind of comparing them to how Galileo had his. So the way it starts is about 5 days ago, as you can see, we had 4 of these little stars behind this giant planet. Now, Galileo believed that these were 4 fixed stars, totally invisible to the naked eye because of, just how bright they were. As time went by, this is the next day, all of a sudden these 4 stars have moved the next day. And so Galileo started following that, and he noticed that throughout the week, the stars were moving with the planet in the sky, which was strange. What Galileo and how I would have figured it is that these little stars were not stars at all, but these were rotating around the planet. These stars were moons, and that's what Galileo figured out. Now keep in mind, I just did that through crappy observation of Galileo telescopes that anyone could build. This is just tubing with some lenses. This anybody can make. Just look it up on the line. The internet is full of information that anyone can find all sorts of cool stuff about, including how to build your own telescope and save yourself $4 grand. Space Kitty! Always running through space.